Hi, I'm Brian Lord, president of Premier Speakers Bureau, and welcome to our free Virtual Friday series. This series is a group of events that helps you learn how you can do events and get to know great speakers. This week, I'm really excited to have on Archie Manning. So a lot of people know Archie as someone from football, which makes sense because he's an amazing football player with an amazing legacy. But in a lot of ways, he's so much more than that. He's someone who's given so much back to his community in Louisiana and Mississippi and around the country. He's someone that is one of the great fathers in the country, recognized by so many people for that, and someone who continually gives back to the sport and to the community in so many ways. So Archie, thank you so much for joining us here for Free Virtual Fridays.
My pleasure, Brian. Glad to be with you. Glad to be part of Free Virtual Fridays.
Well, one of the things that has happened, obviously the past 10 months have been just an unprecedented time, just to overuse that word. And one of the things that have been so difficult for people during this time is what to do and how to change and how to be leaders during this time. And so, the presentation, this sort of moderated fireside chat is about, when leaders should call an audible and how they should do that. So the first question would be, you as a leader, somebody who has raised leaders, what does a leader need to do to build trust with their team?
Well, I've always felt like as a leader, to build trust, number one is to set a good example. I think people that work under you, work in a company, they look toward the top people and they observe. And of course, day to day, whether it be communication or just see how they carry on. I think I've always felt like if you're not getting it done, if you're not doing it right, then how do you expect other people to do it? So I think when you go to work in the morning, especially as a leader, is to set a good example for the other people, and that's going to be so important now. As you said, unprecedented, this pandemic, and there's so many stories there. It's just countless things, and I mean, I even know people that have prospered during this time in some rare companies and things like that, but the majority of people have never experienced anything like this. I equated a little bit, Brian. You remember, I live here in New Orleans, and Hurricane Katrina, it knocked our socks off, and so it, everybody kind of had to unite and pull up their straps and start over in a lot of ways. And I know there's so many people throughout the country that it's got to, in some form or fashion, start over. And so it's a lot of similarities there.
And one of the things that you as a speaker, but also quarterback, talk about. Now, as a quarterback, there's a thing called an audible. So for those who don't know about an audible, it's when you've done all this preparation and everything else, and you get up to the line, and then you have to change what you've planned to do. And that's one of the things that makes you so perfect for this time is being in that position where you are a leader and you're changing things. So tell us, when do you decide to call an audible, and what goes into that when you're faced to something that you weren't expecting before you got there?
Yeah, the time, especially as a quarterback, the time to call an audible is when you've got to change. You've got to change. What you've got called is not going to, at least in your opinion, probably your coach's opinion, is not going to work. So it's change. And in our society, in this world, change is the most constant thing that we live with. And if you're not prepared for that, you can't exist. So it's almost constantly like a lot of things. I know a good guy that's a really good golfer, and he talks about golf is a game of adjustments. Well, life is a game of adjustment. Business is a game of adjustments. And it's never going to be truer than now as we come out of this pandemic and try to get back on track, get back to whatever our business is, get to where we were, and then go beyond that. But football, I use football terms. It's calling an audible, but basically it's being ready to change and make adjustments.
So for this, we got a huge amount of questions from people that they want to ask, and definitely if you are watching, go ahead and ask those. This one is from Jennifer Leday. Can you share some times when you've had to call an audible, both when you were successful and maybe when you were less successful when you call an audible?
Well, I'll go back to football first. I kind of talk about, I played 15 years of pro football, and prior to that, college and high school. I've often talked of it as almost two different lives. So my youngest son, Eli, just retired last year after 16 years in the NFL. So he's at that point where he's beginning that phase two of his life. And so in football, I had to call, and I'm not talking about just a single play at the line of scrimmage, but a lot of things happen throughout the career where you've kind of got to call them off. We weren't very good. We're losing. We got changes going on in management. We got huge changes going on every 2 or 3 years in coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, and so forth. That's adjusting to that. That's an audible to try to. It's a start over. You begin again. I got traded. That's a real audible right there. Going to another city, going to another team, going to a whole new group of teammates. People deal with that as they change jobs. Got traded again. First time to Houston, next time to Minnesota. Another different part of the country for me, going to Minnesota. Another coach, longtime coaching staff there. Great past that they'd had. So those are changes. Those are audibles. Retire, start my second career, and different things there, kind of, okay, what to do. Fortunately had some options, but got in the investment business. But then I was trying to juggle other things too. I'm getting invitations to do corporate speaking. I'm getting invitations to maybe do some marketing with a company. My boys started playing pro football. They're involved in some marketing things. I'm being asked to join them too, maybe in some of those things. So that trying to juggle the investment business with a lot of other things. Is this going to work? Can I do that? Got into got in a health club business, kind of trying to run that, do all the other things. So, as I said, it's constant change. It's adjusting. It's trying to do. You're trying to do the right thing. You want to do what's right for your family. You want to do what makes you happy, what you can be successful doing. So, oftentimes those are pretty tough decisions to make.
Mm-hmm. That is one of those that came up, and this is another listener question here, but it goes into that when you're moving around, you're doing these different things. One of the things you're famous for being is a great dad, and your kids say that. I'm sure your grandkids would pass that along as a great grandfather. But for somebody who lived on the road quite a bit, being a professional football player, and then moving, playing for 3 different teams in different cities. So this is from Ryan Burke, but how did you balance being a successful professional and being a successful father?
I think one of the things that my parents taught me was try to always maintain my priorities and to line up my priorities and make sure you stick to them. And your faith should be the number one priority. And then the next, I was always taught, should be family. And I've tried to keep that. And as as they say, the man of the house, I've got a lot of responsibility there. I've got to try to make a good living and provide. Olivia and I'll mention next week we'll be married 50 years.
Wow, congrats.
Proud of that. She needs a medal. She needs some kind of medal. Yeah. But I enjoyed travel. I enjoy what I like most about speaking is not necessarily getting on that plane and getting there, or maybe spending the night away from home, but I love meeting new people. I love in speaking, corporate speaking, you meet successful people. A lot of times you the head of the company, and you get to know somebody and kind of his story and how he got there and so forth. So I enjoy that, but I never enjoyed being away from a family for a long period of time. But I think there is the one great thing about football is we didn't travel that much. Baseball, they go on like a 2-week road trip, and basketball, they're gone sometimes on a road trip of 10 days or something. We didn't do that. We play an away game. We leave on Saturday morning and we're back on Sunday night. Now, in training camp back in those days, we'd go away sometimes for 4 or 5 weeks, and didn't particularly like that. But sometimes when when you're away for a period of time, your family's real glad to see you when you get back, and certainly you're glad to see them. But I tried to balance it, and they always say try to have that quality time when you are there. I was always tried to any way I could, and I could in football, I could have breakfast with my kids, up early, getting ready to go to school, and I would leave about the same time they would. That's when I was required as a football player to be that. And then after football, kind of the same thing. But when you are home, try to make it quality time, be around, check in on your children's activities, be part of their life. Helping with homework is that's good stuff. And also, if you can, as much as you can, to have dinner together and meals together. We had a little something my kids used to call the board meeting, and it was just something that I kind of established as they were getting a little older. Is on Sunday night we had a board meeting, and we never ate at our dining room table very much. That was kind of formal. We didn't do that much, but on Sunday night we had a little board meeting around that dining room table, and kind of just talked about maybe what's going on this past week, but what's coming up this next week, and how are we going to handle that, and how we deal with the things that's going on in everyone's life. But it's time with your family, which we all love to have.
No, that's great. I've got teenagers and little ones, and that is a really good suggestion. I think we're probably going to install that into the offense on Sunday night this week. So that's great advice there. You talk about as being a leader, whether it's your family, whether it's your football team, whether it's your business. What are your tips for people on how to overcome adversity?
Well, the one thing you just got to recognize, and again, is recognize that there's always going to be change, that you're always going to have to be making adjustments. Adversity is inevitable. It is going to happen. And now we can roll along, and we can feel great, and business is good, and I'm healthy, and my family's healthy, and the kids won a football game on Friday night. All things going good, but then something's going to jump up there. It's just the way it is. So I think to be in a mindset that when it happens, not to go through this big drastic change, show a big, huge emotional letdown. It's about attitude, and dealing with adversity is absolutely to have to recognize that it can happen, but deal with it and be positive about it. And if it's happening to a family member, to a cohort at work or whatever, you're sympathetic about it, but in a positive, in a very positive way, deal with it and work to overcome it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we got a couple questions in here. It's actually two similar questions. So from Bill Stanton and Drew Colley. But basically, when do you decide to call an audible, or when do you decide to make a change?
I try to make a change when what you're doing now is not working. And sometimes, we can all, as leaders, coaches, can be late. Make it, we can be stubborn, I guess is the word. As leaders, I think it's very important for us to have an attitude that we aren't just dead set that our way is the only way, and that we've got to be flexible. We've got to listen to other people. We've got to recognize what problems are. What can I do, and talk about Audible? What can I change to make everything better, to make this person better, to make our company better, to make me better, for everything? Try to, if things aren't going just perfect, how can we work this out? So it's definitely a flexibility thing, and recognize, but it's more than anything is recognizing that change is needed, and we got to do it.
So one of the things you talk about is that attitude is more important than ever, and it kind of goes into a question here from Gary Brott. What is more important when it comes to dealing with uncertainty, attitude or actions?
Both. Don't try the action without the right attitude. So they're hand in hand, but it's very important to act and get things going. I talk about getting back on track. I learned something when I was still playing football in the off season. I did some work with a car dealership, a real outstanding car dealership. And they had a great program of where they had a dealer development program within not only their dealership, but their association, which was several dealerships around the country. And basically what it involved was people that are in sales in a car dealership have the opportunity to advance and get into management, and then get into other areas of the dealership, and ultimately be a dealer. So it was really outstanding. So I went through that in the off season, maybe a little bit in a limited way, because I still had a few football responsibilities and so forth, but it was kind of learning that. But I know we've all bought cars, and I learned something when I was in sales, and we actually, before they ever put anybody out on the sales floor, they had 6 weeks of training. That's pretty unusual. 6 weeks of just in kind of classroom, and just product knowledge and those type of things, and going back and forth with each other before you really meet customers and try to work on what they used to call the road to a sale. But one of the great concepts I learned during that time was called get back to zero. Get back to zero. And I used it right away in football. Quarterbacks throw interceptions, and no quarterback ever wants to throw an interception. A cornerback gets beat for a touchdown. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. But we compared it in the car business is when you meet a customer and you tell them all the good things about the car, you take them on a demo ride, and then you know what happens then. You go back and you go in that office right there, and you write out the price, and you hand them that pen to sign up, and they say, well, I'm gonna go down the street and look at this product too, and I'll check with you later. And that's the way it works. And so you spent 3 or 4 or 5 hours, whatever, with this customer, and it kind of, all your momentum and your attitude kind of changed a little bit, and you're down, and then all of a sudden another customer walks in the door. You've got to get back to zero. You've got to meet that customer, and you got to go to work to try to make that sale. So like I said, I used it in football, tried to, and when I threw an interception, to not let that go with me for the next series, or certainly not the rest of that game, certainly not the next week if I threw 3 or 4, which I did. So it's just come up to me so many times in business and work, and it's an attitude adjustment, but it's getting back to zero.
Absolutely. So we have another question here from Howie Ferguson. What suggestion do you have for getting teammates or colleagues to not let feelings and emotion play such a large role in how they act and think.
Say that again about for who?
So as a leader, what suggestions do you have for getting teammates or colleagues to not let feelings and emotions play such a large role in how they act and think?
Yeah. Again, I think I think it's been a good example. I think if you don't do that, if you kind of level and it's being confident and passion and showing your passion for what you're doing, for your work, for your our our company, our business, that and a love, a passion for it, an appreciation for it, and the attitude that you go about it. It's the example. And then if you carry yourself right, then you can sit down and talk with that person about their weakness there. But if you're if you holler, scream, go off here and there, that's kind of hard to do. You got to influence them by your own example.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things too that seems to be part of what you do and others. It's more of a calm sense of leadership as opposed to others who are I don't know if vocal is the right word, but taking those actions in sort of a calmer way during times of change and times of stress. So I know that's always appreciated.
Well, Brian, the different ways to skin a cat. And here, I always go back to football, and you talk about quarterbacks, and you talk about quarterbacks as leaders. Mm-hmm. And sure, I mean, there was a quarterback. He was before me, Bobby Lane, and they said he could really dress down his team, and and I think a lot of people looked at that and said, well, that makes him a great leader. When I first started playing, Bob Greasy was with the Miami Dolphins, and they had these great teams, had an undefeated team. Bob Greasy was just level as he could be. He just did his job, set a good example to the rest of the team. There may have been a time we go off a little bit, but never really in public, never really in the huddle, not on TV. So again, I'm not saying it's bad for a quarterback to sometimes. I did it a few times, but if I really was going to kind of jump someone, I really tried to do it privately. I think to embarrass someone in front of 10 other guys in that huddle, I never felt like that worked very good. Some guys didn't care, and maybe they needed it, but I just think it's better to individually talk with someone, try to motivate them a little bit, make them understand what we need to do to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we did do a question earlier about some of that parenting and fatherhood, that sort of thing. But I know that's one of the biggest things that people always ask for. So we have a couple questions on that. How did your relationship with your sons change once they became grown men?
Well, I took them off allowance. Two of them, my oldest son, Cooper, after college, got in the business world, and he had a couple of things, but he had some success, and I was very, very proud of him. He did really well in business. The other two went into pro football when they got out of college. I think it becomes that now. I never tried to be their coach. When they were coming up through junior high and high school, even though I'd played, they had a coach, and I just didn't think it was my place. I wanted to be their father and not be their coach. And so now if they asked me, at a younger age, if they asked me, Dad, you want to go play catch with us? I'll go. But I never said, get your ball and bat or get your football, we're going to play catch. It kind of had to be them. So when they got into high school and college, I never tried to go over that coach with some technical things. Matter of fact, I just kind of dropped a lot of that. I didn't talk X's and O's with them. And I really appreciated, I think they appreciated that. They had good coaches, but they would come to me with other things beside the X's and O's. What about when I got to talk to the media about this? How should I handle that? Well, if they ask me advice, I'm gonna give it to them. Getting into pro ball, kind of setting up life away from football, being away from home, this is my profession now, and get married and all those things. I think over time you kind of get away from the father-son relationship into a best friend type of thing, and I enjoyed that. Where I was kind of, I felt like I was kind of their buddy, and they could ask me to do something, they could ask my advice. I loved that relationship rather than me just trying to be dominant over them. I mean, my boys are now in their 40s, and they've been down some rough roads, and they've had the highs and the lows, but they deal with it, and we have a great relationship. And another thing I've always told them, and I've heard them say this, but I've told them often. I said, if you ever want to disappoint me, is for y'all not to get along. I hate to see that. And it happens in our society. I hate it to see siblings that don't get along. And you see it. And I know sometimes it just happens, and maybe there's a good reason, but I've kind of studied it a little bit because it makes me sad to see it. And that's one thing I'm really very proud of especially my three boys. They're all married. They all got children. They all got, this old world going through pandemic and all these things, but they still get along, and they have fun with each other. And that makes me proud.
So one last question here. I know we're coming up on Super Bowl Sunday, and there's been many commercials out there that have involved you or Manning's in some form or fashion. And so out of all the commercials that you've ever done, what are your favorites?
A lot of people ask me about what's of Peyton's commercials. Peyton's done so many, and Eli's done them. They've done some together. It's been fun, but all of us have been in one. Even Olivia was in one. This was years and years ago. ESPN came to me and said, and ESPN does some really funny, I think through the years, they've really done some great stuff. So we want all the Mannings in a commercial. I said, I can't get all the Mannings to Bristol, Connecticut. It's virtually impossible right now. Peyton and Eli are already in pro ball. And, but we were in New York. We were all going to be in New York. So I called the girl back. I said, I think we could get up there, but it's got to be quick. Peyton's got to go to a mini camp. So we'll be ready. We'll be ready. They sent me the script. We went in there, and so I don't know how many people remember, but basically we're taking a tour of ESPN. And they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go down there. He's going to take us down there and we'll do the tour. And Peyton, you and Eli are going to be in the back. And y'all are kind of frolicking with each other, kind of messing with each other. And what does your dad usually do when y'all do that? And they said, he gives us the look first. First thing he does, he gives us the look. So he said, okay, we want the look. So we're rolling the cameras because Peyton had to go to a mini cam. We kind of need to get this done. And I was proud to say, when we did it, we did one take on the look. They said, that's it. That's I don't know how many, I can't tell you how many people through the years have said, that's the look my dad used to give me, So I think I've gotten more comment about that one, and mostly about the look.
That is great. Now, how often? Now, did the boys just beat each other up? Because it looked like they were doing a lot. I've seen that commercial so many times myself. I love it.
That was, Cooper was 2 years older than Peyton, and then it was a 5-year gap to Eli. So when they were growing up, Peyton and Cooper, 2 years apart, they fought. I mean, they battled and they just competed and everything. But Eli was 5 years back. They just, I don't know, abuse is not a good word. They just messed with Eli, some of the things they just played with him, and so he as he got older, he kind of caught up. He kind of had to win his way. He had to get his respect to get in there, to get in those battles with him. But it was good.
Well, thank you so much for being on this interview. Thanks for not giving me the look this whole time. I really appreciate that. And we really so much enjoyed having you on here. So thank you so much to you. Thank you to everyone who sent in these great questions. This was so much fun. And then also want to let everyone know on February 5th, we will have Scott Hamilton, Olympic champion, cancer survivor, entrepreneur, for his presentation, Free Virtual Friday, on Friday, February 5th. So Archie, thank you again so much for coming on.
I enjoyed being on with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, everybody, have a great day.